You know what? There's a couple hip hop artists I do mean to reach out to. I keep forgetting to, like Clipping. I'd love to play some Clipping on here. Or hey, we should reach out to Ren, see if Ren will let us play his music.
Wow. Have you been following Ren?
Yeah, well, since you turned me on to the one that everybody else listens to, High Ren, I think, was the one you first showed me. And my brother came to me like a couple weeks later, and he's like, "Have you heard this Ren guy?"
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, I'm like, I didn't tell you about Ren." And he's like, "Oh, you didn't, he's like, I thought I was going to show you something you hadn't heard before." And so he, he told me he was a big fan of the song, and then he came back to me saying, "I'm still listening to Ren. Like, I'm going down the rabbit hole." And he showed me the was it the Tale of Jenny and Screech?
All right.
I don't know if you've, and that one was very moving too, and it was delivered a similar way, like just him on a guitar singing.
That's right. That was the first
which
thing
I prefer.
That was the first thing I ever heard by him, and I didn't know what to make of it. And I think I might have got the second part of the story rather than the first, because there's two parts to that on YouTube, I think. And I kind of went, what was that? I didn't quite understand that, but I watched the whole video because I was fascinated by this person. And it was a couple of weeks later, High Ren popped up in my feed. Well, that's that guy that did that weird guitar stuff, and the thumbnail's him sitting there in his hospital gown. And I thought, well, that's intriguing, and I was completely blown away. Like I think almost everybody who hears that track is just like, what the fuck was that? It's like so just out there, but it's so brilliant. And yeah, then I started going back into his back catalogue, and wow, the guy's immense. He really is. I hope he goes. I hope he gets what he wants. I hope he manages to do what he's talking about. His latest video is called Murderer. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's great as well.
I haven't yet.
It's another one of these.
I find it hard. It's not.
Go on.
It's on easy click. Like Suicide was a terribly hard song to listen to. And I know Murder is supposed to be like a companion piece to Suicide, and to a certain degree, like he was talking about how, or maybe not companion piece, but he was comparing the two, because I heard that he got some strikes on YouTube for being offensive because he's singing about murder, and he was saying, why is it I can sing about suicide, mental illness, and that's okay, but as soon as I talk about murder, or was it the other way around? Murder was okay, but suicide wasn't.
It was the other way around.
Yeah. And
no, Murder is a different thing altogether. It's not. I mean, I know exactly what you mean about the Suicide one, and the video they released after that, called For Joe, is a reworking of the Suicide video, in which he repeats the emotional content. In the Suicide video, he kind of breaks down at one point, and you can hear he's actually crying, and he does that again in the sort of re-performance of it. He's sitting at a keyboard with the city in the background. So those are both really quite difficult listens, as you say. In fact, I saw one guy doing a reaction who was literally speechless at the end of the Suicide video, and he just sat there, and you could see he was trying to say something, and it was a genuine reaction, because I guess that's a topic that hits home to a lot of people for a lot of reasons. And he just stopped. He didn't say anything. He just stopped the video after about 2 minutes of trying to gather himself, and he couldn't. And but that's the sign of real art, when it's doing that to you, when it reduces you, when it makes you think in that way. That's a sign, not just a great artist. That's a genius. And his genius extends to his videos as well, because especially all the modern videos from probably Jenny and Screech up to now, they're all. If you said they were made by Kubrick, you wouldn't be far wrong. They're that well thought out. The details, the camera movements, the way that he acts to the camera, which he's talked about, that everything's worked out, all these little reactions and all these things that you think might have just come in the moment. No, it's all very heavily worked out. And then he works out the camera schedule, and he's, they only have, I think, one camera crew, but they work out all the shots and all that kind of stuff. And having done a bit of filming myself, and having worked with music and film, I can see what he's doing, and it's just fantastic what he's doing. I think it's, whether it translates into live, I don't know, because there's one live video up, where he does high ren to an audience. I don't know if you've seen that one, but that kind of fell flat to me. I thought, is that because is he really a video artist? Will he ever be able to do something like high ren live and have it have that impact? I don't know how you would do it. That's
hard to know. I mean, like high ren, it seems like it's a one take performance. You know, it's impressive if it is. You know, and obviously it could be edited. You know, but it's hard to know. You know, because it's, you know, with like a guitar is not a nylon string guitar isn't the best way to deliver music like that either, and especially live, because it's, you know, nylon string guitars sound terrible in a live environment too. So, you know, I don't think you don't see better off miming it, you know, and singing live on top of a backing track than trying to play it live. But that would take away from his. You can tell like because he doesn't do it the same way twice. I don't think. I think he's very much about the moment, like with the expression and like the guitar and his voice are very much linked, you know, when it comes to like the
they are linked, but that's rehearsed. That you're hearing, he doesn't do it differently each time, because when he's doing something like Ren or one of these other videos where it looks like one take, Ren is actually several takes, because if you look at it, there's several cameras, and he's talked about that as well. It's all worked out for continuity's sake as well. So when he
I get that. Yeah, so no, I get that. Like what I meant more is like because his guitar and voice are so linked, I think he'd have a hard time delivering that same like tightness and like an intimate sort of connection if it was a backtrack recording, because
I'm with you. Yeah,
right, he's not moving. Yeah. He's not moving the sound. But no, I agree. Like it's very well orchestrated, and I do think he does try and present it the same way every time. I just meant the subtle nuance of the live performance of the human body. You know.
Yeah. And he's a great rapper as well. He's a fantastic rapper.
Yeah.
I mean, to the degree where I've learned a line of his. You probably won't know the line, but it's "Kiddie with a black cat in the car parked by Primark."
Okay, no.
I can say that line. I rehearsed that for half a day just to get it so I could say that line. And he's popping out lines like, you know, and complex, rhythmically complex lines that are changed. Oh, jeez. That guy, I mean, I know he's ill and all the rest of it, but there's no sign of it in his music, you know?
Yeah.
And when he takes his shirt off, for which he does quite a lot, I think if I had a body like his, I would probably take my shirt off more often than I do. You know, he's ripped. He's absolutely ripped, yet he's sick from the Lyme disease, you know? So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with that guy. Yeah, it'd be great to play some of his stuff. I feel as though we'd have to do a whole show just for him.
Yeah.
I think we would. I think we probably could.
Probably could.
One of us should reach out. I might reach out. He's actually said, you know, anybody wants to use the music, you can, but it is copyrighted, so we'd need to get his permission.
Yeah, it'd be good though.
Yeah.
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 So, where to next we go here? I don't know. I got some songs here that are very heavy on the guitar. I mean, not necessarily like not heavy metal guitar, but guitar being a main focus. I got one that's just like upright bass and drums, which is pretty cool. And I got some more Oxbow because the album has.
Can we play the Oxbow one?
I think maybe we should do the Oxbow.
I think we should.
To me,
I listened to the first little bit of that earlier, and I thought, I really like that.
Yeah, it's.
I do.
It's not what I expected from Oxbow, and apparently they released the video for the song like today.
Really?
I think it came out today, maybe yesterday. Yeah, and it's a strange video, and it involves there's a female singer in the song too, and I had her name on the tip of my tongue, and now I'm forgetting it. It's like Laguna Inguada or something. It's a strange
Lingua ignota.
Lingua ignota.
Ignota something.
Yeah, and it's kind of neat to see her here because I think she's got a record on Ipecac as well. That's fantastic. And she was the girlfriend of the lead singer from The Daughters.
Oh.
And apparently she was like, they were together when she made her amazing album on Ipecac Records, and they made their amazing album, and they both got like rave reviews. And apparently they were in this terribly toxic relationship where like he used to beat her up and she would beat him up, and it was like just horribly.
Oh.
Yeah, it was just broken bones and drug abuse and unfortunately, but she's a fantastic musician. And I'm glad to see her here on the Oxbow records, because it's this guy's voice. We talk about this guy. He's a strange character. He doesn't really belong anywhere. But him and her, the song they make together here, and this Lovely Murk, it's called. I think it's just fantastic. It's an amazing piece of music, and the music video is incredibly bizarre too.
I will give that a watch later. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So so this is Oxbow's newest record called Love's Holiday, and the song is called Lovely Murk.
Two steps, three measures, we love and we move together. What does he say when the monster comes to stay?
That's amazing.
That's a good tune.
That fella's voice. What's his name? Eugene S. Robinson. Eugene S. Robinson. Probably a relative of mine. That's an in-joke. That guy's voice. It's just... We talked about it last time, and I think I said last time, the backing's kind of I can't remember what I said last time, but the backing is fairly straightforward most of the time.
Yeah.
And it struck me this time that I could be listening to that voice on anything, in any context. He's got one of those voices where I don't know what his spoken voice is like, but his singing voice is so filled with colour, texture, depth, and all kinds of shapes and stuff that voices don't usually have. I would kill for a voice like that. The things I could do with a voice like that. Wow. But that's not to reduce what the backing is. It's wonderful. The backing is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. But that voice. And as I was thinking, as it just came to the end there, and it has that bit at the end with all the sort of weird, I don't know whether they're guitar somethings or whether they're reverb leaks or whatever they are, but there's that kind of few seconds at the end there. I suddenly started, for some reason, thinking about Nirvana and how Nirvana set off a whole bunch of bands on this kind of journey. There's you can probably pick a dozen names of bands that were inspired by what Nirvana did. With the quiet acoustic bit, the loud bit, and all that kind of stuff, and the way that Cobain sang and all of that. Why I would think of that, I don't know, but I was thinking of it in the context of Oxbow. And could Oxbow ever start something like that? Would there ever be a movement based around what Oxbow do? No, because nobody's got that voice except that guy. They're going to be on their own. They're never going to be part of a... Well, that's not true to say, but you're never going to have an imitator of that, is what I'm trying to say. Whereas Kurt Cobain, you could have imitators of him, because although he had a great voice, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like whatever that is. I mean, I don't even know how they record something like that, because I can't tell whether he's singing with gusto or whether he's very quiet. And if he's very quiet, how do they mic him up live? That could be a problem, because I think he is at times being very quiet. I don't know, but it's such an extraordinary sound. I don't care how they do it. I don't care. It's just amazing. Do you know anything about them live? Have you seen them?
I've
sort of in videos or anything?
Yeah, I've watched a few recordings of people filming from the audience, because I don't know if they have a live album or anything, or a live DVD. And that's where I found out how because live he's very bizarre. Like he's often dressed oddly compared to the rest of the musicians in the band, and like I said,
you mentioned that before, yeah.
And he wraps duct tape around his head instead of wearing earplugs.
Right.
Because apparently earplugs fall out, so that's why he just wraps tape around his head, because he finds that easier.
But from what you've seen, is his voice like that, or an approximation of that in the live setting?
So it's hard to tell, because it was like a cell phone recording, so it's hard for me to get a good take on it. But yeah, I got the impression that I think you're gonna have a hard time picking out his voice anywhere that's outside of a studio setting.
Right.
It's
right.
I'm trying to think of another example of someone like the lead singer from Deftones is like that. I don't know if you listen to Deftones or not.
No, I don't. I don't know them.
Their lead singer, his singing doesn't translate well live. It's too internal. It's too whispery, I think. To compete with that kind of volume, to be brought up to the right level. So I don't have any experience with them, and I haven't seen them live. I have never been in a city where I knew they were coming to play, so I had a chance to go see them or anything.
Yeah.
So I haven't experienced it.
Yeah. So something to think about. If they play live, to think how would you present that voice live? But I don't care. This album, I'm definitely gonna have to get this album now. See you with your sending me all this brilliant music. Yeah, I've been thinking about getting that album. I'll definitely to get it now.
I haven't bought it yet. I have
fantastic stuff. Absolutely brilliant.
I have the other one before it, the Thin Black Duke, and I'm obsessed with that record too.
Is his voice similar on that?
Yeah,
it's just that voice, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, this album and the last album are very similar sounding in many ways. This one here, I feel like goes in the direction that the other album was going even further. So it's if you're at all a fan of Oxbow and like the direction they're going, I think this album is a very natural progression in a beautiful direction. So there's a good chance
I'm just
you like it too.
Yeah, I just seen that it's Thin Black Duke is what you talked about.
Yeah,
that was May 2017. That's so there's, you're saying that there's equivalence between the Thin Black Duke and this album, even though there's 6 years between them.
Yeah, there is, and I think, and then the Oxbow before that is much different than what we're getting now. Like they're more
right, okay.
They were more of almost like a punk rock band before, almost like experimental punk rock kind of stuff. Now they're
right, okay, yeah. Okay.
Apparently they're going to be playing in Glasgow on September 1st, according to their Bandcamp page here.
Oh. Oh no. Oh God. Okay, so I have to sort that one as well. I'm going to have to be the guy who checks them out live to figure out if the voice can be presented live.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the venue? Does it say there what the venue is?
The Broadcast, I think, or just called Broadcast.
Oh, I don't know where that is.
It's probably a new name for a club that went out of business 2 years ago.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
That'd be awesome.
Gosh, how do I follow that though? What can I possibly follow that with?
that Keor guy might be able to kind of.
Yeah, I was actually looking at that one. It's completely different, of course, but wow. Yeah, okay, we'll go with that one. Yeah, we'll go with. Yeah, you all right with that?
Oh, absolutely. I think Keor. He screams Devin Townsend to me. He has to be a fan of Devin Townsend. So as soon as I heard Keor, you recommended. Actually, I don't know if you recommended it to me or I just got an email that you bought his album, so I wouldn't listen to it because I said I get an email every time you buy something in Bandcamp. I get an email telling me you bought something, so I go and I listen to it.
Yeah. I bought the digital album. I don't think he hasn't got any CDs out, sadly. Yeah, this is a guy who goes under the name Keor, Keor, which of course you can find on Bandcamp, and his name is Victor Miranda Martin, and he's from Paris in actual France. Whether he is French or not, I don't know. I can't tell that. But he does this wonderfully sort of, I think you would have to say it's progressive. Definitely. This track's called Snivel by the Pond, and sometimes when people write English lyrics when English isn't their first language, you kind of think, do they know what that means the way that I would know what that means? So Snivel by the Pond is somebody crying by a pond, but
yeah.
I don't think any poetic person would ever use that particular phrase. But it's great, it's like a different way of... I love this because it's a different way of thinking about language, so it makes you kind of approach it slightly differently. And it's a great track for deep listening. Because there are, well, you'll hear it. There's just so much delicacy and pomp to this track, which I think is really good. So we'll get on and play it. So this is Snivel by the Pond from the album Petrichor by Keor.
I swear my knees are fine. Don't need someone behind me all the time. Leaving home at sundown when the golden hues of summer twilights come. Seems like I'm lost. Fell right in the trap. The evening stars stream out, and the cold winds make me
It crackles away into the distance.
Exactly. That's a fantastic song. He definitely one of those musicians that you feel like needs to be more well known. You know, it's that's world class stuff. Everything about that's world class. The execution, the engineering of it, just everything about it. You know, and it's the guitar playing. I thought it was fantastic. It was never overstated. It was never too cluttered, and as far as I could tell, it was guiding everything. Like it was, you know, like the way an old school composer would treat the piano, you know, as the whole orchestra, and like everything else is kind of like a violin's this finger, a trumpet's that finger. You know, that's how I felt as guitar was being treated, and I had that song in my head. Not that, like I had that song in me to write, and I haven't got like the energy in me right now to write a beautiful guitar part like that and then spend the hours dissecting it to extrapolate on it like that, you know? So it's, I know that was an undertaking, you know, and I'm not sure if he does it all by himself or if it's, he has people helping him with that, you know?
He has, on that track, he has 3 other people. He's got someone that plays a clarinet, I think, someone else that plays piano, and someone that does mandolin and orchestral percussions. But he does the vocals, guitars, mellotron, Hammond organ, soundscapes, sampled instruments, and additional keyboards, whatever that is. So I guess he does most of it, but there's other people on some of the tracks. So
yeah, and I was wondering if that was a clarinet or an oboe, but definitely clarinet. Clarinet's one of those instruments that if you're not really good at playing it, I hate you for it. Like I'd rather you just leave the room with your clarinet, you know, but if you're good at it, it's so beautiful. You know? Yeah,
it's got that lovely silky tone, hasn't it? Yeah, when it's played well. Yeah, I agree.
And the thing, you know, and the composer it reminded me the most of is Danny Elfman. It's right, especially like about halfway through, leading towards the end there, I felt like I was being transported into, you know, Nightmare Before Christmas or something, or Beetlejuice or Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah,
you know.
The part I liked best was actually when the orchestral stuff went away, and it was just after that first sort of opening orchestral blast, and it comes right down, and it's just this little guitar.
Yeah.
Just this little guitar's left, and then the voice comes in, and the guitar is almost like, it's not microtonal, I don't think, but it's almost out of tune, or there's something out of key in the phrasing of it. But he manages to pick a melody that just hangs off these little, in inverted commas, wrong notes, and it's just so wonderful.
It is.
It's quite an original track. I've not heard very much else like that.
No way. And the production of it with lush stuff going on, it does remind me a lot of Devin Townsend, like I said at the beginning, you know. But you could listen to a dozen Devin Townsend songs and say, none of this reminds me of that. But you hear the one that's in my head, you might hear it, you know.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
And it's one of those name your price albums, isn't it? So you can buy it for a penny if you want.
Well, you should definitely do that if you haven't already. Yeah, it is a great album. The rest of the album is fantastic.
I recommend. Now I don't know how to follow that, because that song is like epic on like a beautiful proportion. You know, I feel like I have a couple songs that might, you know, reach for kind of a mountain like that, like Hashashin has kind of like this. It reminds me of Tool a little bit, you know, like Tool if they were like a low budget band from the Middle East, even though they're from Australia. But I don't know if I want to go there.
I know that one confused me when I was looking at them. Oh, these guys must be from the East somewhere. No, they're from Australia. Okay.
Yeah. There's a few bands. There's a band I like from Australia called Bombay Royale, and they sound like a surf rock band from the middle of India, and they're just Australian too.
Yes, Australia must be a mixing pot for that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Well, you know what? I'm feeling this pull towards Spotlights. And they have a song here called Sunset Burial off their EP called Seance. And I have to say, I don't know anything about this band at all, other than the fact that, you know, they belong to this record label. And this is one of those songs that it's one of the songs that starts off as something and ends as something completely different. And that's what I love about this track. And I just basically was going through, Ipecac artists I hadn't heard of before and albums that were released recently. Like this was released back in March. So it's still pretty, by my standards, still pretty fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, they're on Bandcamp and they're unknown. So it's $3 to buy the EP. So I suggest you do it and support these wonderful musicians. The album cover looks sort of like it's some sort of demonic version of a Ouija board piece. What do you call that piece on a Ouija board? That moves around by itself. Placket or something? Or
I don't know. I didn't know it had a name. But yeah, it does look like that. It's got some kind of representation of a skull or something, and it's very very unsettling.
Yes, and so I don't think the music's as unsettling as the everything we're talking about so far is presenting it, but who knows? So we're gonna go with Spotlights by the band's called Spotlights. The song is called Sunset Burial, and it's off their Seance EP.
Oh, man. Well, I think you managed it. You managed to follow Keor quite successfully, I think.
Oh, well, I'm glad you think so.
That was good. That was good. I listened to the first few seconds of that earlier on in the day when I was setting up the playlist and everything, so I'd had a sort of clue as to what that bit of it was about, but I hadn't listened to the rest, so all that came as a wonderful surprise. The first thing I want to point out is that is one of the best bass sounds I've heard in quite a while. The opening kind of part of the bass sound reminded me of the bass that the Cure used to use on around the time of Faith. That sort of chorused bass sound, which was very, very popular in those days. I haven't heard it for years, but it really, really works here in the opening, and I was really attracted to that bass. It's got a nice, lovely kind of warm yellow kind of sound to it, which I thought was brilliant. And then, of course, later on when it gets heavy, there's a part where it's just the bass double tracked, and it's so good. The whole track was great, but I really, really was digging the bass. But yeah, I love that when they took it in probably 3 or 4 different directions, where you didn't. Each time you had no idea where it was going to go. So yeah, that is definitely a track that belongs on the Eyebrow. There's no doubt about that. It's got all of that kind of trickiness to it. If there was one thing that I would say, the vocals, I couldn't get a sense of what was being said to me. So I don't know whether that's deliberate or not. There's no lyrics here, so I don't know what Sunset Burial is about, really. But it's the Seance EP. They've got a kind of distorted Ouija board kind of thing, Sunset Burial. So I'm guessing it's not all sweetness and light, and there's something dark going on here. But I couldn't really get a sense of the lyrics. But maybe on another listening I would. But yeah, I love that. I love the whole sort of feel of that. And it's only $3, so I can afford that. Excellent. Good stuff. Yeah, really good.
That's a good one.
And that's from their upcoming album, Alchemy for the Dead, so I might check that out as well.
Yes. Which should be good, I hope. I'm sure it will be good. It's always good on Ipecac, I find. It's one of those record labels. I don't know if it's because artists flock there because they're real artists and they don't feel unimpeded, or if they have really high standards for what they allow, because they have everything from rap to country to easy listening, but
yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, and they seem to treat their artists with a lot of respect as well, from what you were saying, and that comes across in the way everything's presented.
Yeah.
You can always tell when a band's in a happy place, even if they're doing dark music. If they're working, if it's working really well, you can tell there's a reason for that. It has to the whole machine has to be working to get a band working well, and so everything I've heard from Ipecac is just, we've played a lot of stuff off their label, and it's all good. I mean, it's all good. There's no rubbish on that label. We're not sponsored by them.
No.
We just like them.
Actually, I've been thinking I should email them and see if they'll let me put a record out in Ipecac. What do you have to do to be an artist in Ipecac?
I don't know. You might have to.
It'd be kind of neat.
You might have to sell your soul or something. Maybe that's why everybody sounds good. They're all.
Oh.
They've got no souls.
All...
Yeah, you've got some stuff that would sit well in that kind of environment, haven't you? Yeah, definitely.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I do. The stuff I'm making now might not fit in there as much as the stuff I was making a couple of years ago. But not that it's not really behind me. I've just become obsessed with minimalism in comparison.
Yeah.
and synthesis. Like, I'm just so obsessed. All I can dream about is I'm always dreaming about sine waves and LFOs and envelopes. I wake up with sounds in my head, or not say sounds in my head. Sometimes I'm waking up with ideas of a constructive pathway I'm going to build, and just with the hope it's going to be a beautiful sound, with no idea what it's going to sound like.